Joining me now is Congressman Jake Auchincloss. He's a Democrat from Massachusetts, and he's a member of the China Select Committee. Congressman, really appreciate you coming in. You're also a veteran. I think that's important for folks to know as well. So thanks for coming in. So let me start with simply the mission of this committee. How would you describe the mission of this committee, and what does success look like?
Good to be with you, Chuck. The mission of this committee is twofold. We want to rise above day-to-day politics to chart long-term sound strategy for competition with the Chinese Communist Party. And that requires, number one, creating shared awareness of the scope and severity of that challenge within Congress. And number two is putting forward discrete policy recommendations that can get buy-in from a supermajority of members of Congress, 70% of members of Congress going forward, so that we have strong bipartisan consensus.
It seems as if you read in between the lines of the chairman's words, and Mike Gallagher, I think what he hopes to get out of this, right, is a consensus that, hey, we have to decouple from China economically. What does decoupling look like? That's the challenge. And two, we got to be prepared to defend Taiwan. But let me ask you this. Do you think the American people understand why we would go to war with China over Taiwan if we did do that? Do you think they understand this yet, or do you think they need that more educating is necessary on this?
I think the American people, like I will add the Taiwanese people from where I just returned from a CODEL, would much prefer that we avoid war over Taiwan. And that means changing the cost-benefit analysis from the viewpoint of Xi Jinping. We need to expedite foreign arms sales to Taiwan. We need to invest in their porcupine military strategy, which makes them indigestible. We need to help them achieve energy independence so the Chinese couldn't blockade them and asphyxiate them. We need to help them counter Chinese Communist Party propaganda and influence campaigns. We have got to make Taiwan ready to fight for its independence and autonomy such that the CCP decides, no, not the right time.
Do you think we need a Pacific NATO? And I say this, you know, the TPP, which became a three-letter acronym that became a four-letter word in American politics in 2016, was going to be an economic trade treaty that was supposed to serve as a check on China. Is there a way of putting that together as a sort of security pact, and should there be one?
It's a terrific question. It's actually what I raised in my comments during our first hearing of the committee. I think we got to have a parallel approach here. So on the one hand, we've got the Quad, Japan, United States, India, and Australia, which is a security cooperation in the Indo-Pacific to try to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific. We should build on the Quad. I call it the Quad Plus. Get new member countries to join those military exercises and joint planning, South Korea, for example. Number two, we have got to resuscitate the TPP. Now, whether that starts with just a bilateral trade agreement with Taiwan, whether that's more expansive and looks to be the CPTPP, remains to be seen. But President Obama was right. Free trade agreement in the Indo-Pacific is the best way to contain Chinese aggression and expansionism on the Pacific Ocean, and we have got to lean back into trade and investment.
Let me get at something that a fellow Democratic member of Congress, Judy Chu, a Chinese American, she voted against the creation of this committee, fearing that it was going to, accidentally may be the wrong word, but fearing that it would inevitably lead to more xenophobia. Given what she experienced with the criticism she got from Congressman Gooden, does she have a fair point here?
We always need to be on guard that legitimate and indeed necessary focus on the strategic threat from the Chinese Communist Party does not devolve into, one, a casting of the Chinese people as our enemy. There are 1.4 billion Chinese people. There's 80 million members of the Chinese Communist Party. We wish no ill on the Chinese. And two, devolve into xenophobia or hate towards Chinese Americans or Americans of Asian descent. They are Americans, and they deserve to feel safe and welcome in their communities. And it's unacceptable to be casting aspersions on the loyalties of a member of Congress. That's why it earned a bipartisan rebuke. And it's not in keeping with the spirit of this committee. I think, as we have seen in the first 2 months of this committee is meant to be a bipartisan effort to rise above ad hominem politics and get serious about winning the 21st century.
There was a comment that I saw one person make that says, if you're not worried about the threat from the Chinese Communist Party, you're not getting good intel briefings. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yes. The more one learns about the CCP's activities overseas and indeed in their own country, the more alarming it is. They are thinking in 50-year timelines. They are incredibly sophisticated about how they try to mount disinformation campaigns and influence campaigns. They are patient, and they absolutely want to take the model that they have used on the Chinese mainland and make it a model that sets the rules for an international order.
So that brings me to TikTok. Do you think that this is reason enough to not just ban it from government devices, but do you think this TikTok's a threat to Americans generally and that we shouldn't have it available on our phones?
There is one angle on TikTok that raises its political issues, and indeed it does have ties to the CCP, and that's concerning. And I think the president needs to look seriously at what national security challenges it poses and take actions accordingly. But then there's the second angle, which to me is more impactful, which is what TikTok, Instagram, Be Real, Facebook, what they do to kids' mental health. Yeah. We have seen a precipitous decline in children's socio-emotional well-being in the last 10 years. And it's because these companies, or it's in large part because these companies are monetizing our children's attention spans with no concern whatsoever for their well-being. And it's unfair for parents to have to try to stand up to a $1 trillion company with 10,000 engineers creating new algorithms. Congress needs to take charge.
This sounds like the criticism I heard of tobacco companies in the 70s and 80s.
It is deeply analogous, and the actions against the social media giants need to be equally muscular.
What does that look like?
I've proposed an age limit of 16 that's enforceable and verifiable to use these social media platforms. Parents should be the gatekeepers, and enough with this 13-year age limit that nobody tries to enforce and that's completely unverifiable. We got to put teeth behind it, because we have seen that adolescent boys and girls are suffering on these outlets.
Would you put a time, between 16 and 18, we had, if you think about the old days of near beer, I mean, would you say, okay, you only get 2 hours if you're under the age of 18 a night on social media?
I think the key is that the defaults should put parents in the driver's seat. Right now, you've got parents who have to figure out how to use these apps and how to control their kids and monitor their kids' usage of it, and they're at a disadvantage, and that's just not fair. Parents need to be in the driver's seat after kids are on those programs.
No, and it is on the tech companies to make that possible for us. Congressman Auchincloss, Jake Auchincloss, Democrat, Massachusetts, appreciate you coming on, member of that new Select Committee on China.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.